People don't cancel plans with you because they're busy. They cancel because being around you feels like work. And when someone checks their phone while you're talking, that's not distraction, that's escape. I know this because I spent a long stretch of my life being the most expensive person in the room. Not dramatic, not misunderstood, expensive. Most people aren't avoided because they're awkward. They're avoided because every interaction with them quietly runs a tab. Social effort, emotional effort, attention effort. Nobody wants to open a conversation knowing that they're paying interest. That's not rejection, it's called accounting. Now, I want you to take a second to notice how often that you fall into criticism. I know this isn't that impressive, but I might be wrong, but this probably doesn't matter, but just take a second to notice it and relax. It's not personal. You're not boring. You're just more effort than people actually expected. Anyways, Tonaruk here. I wasn't boring, I was exhausting. I treated conversations like a pitch deck. Every sentence needed context, every thought needed justification, and every silence needed to be filled before it turned into judgment. I thought I was being open. I thought I was being vulnerable. I thought I was doing the work. What I was actually doing was forcing everyone around me to process me in real time. That's not vulnerability, that's outsourcing. I was like a human pop up ad for my own insecurities. Every time someone asked, "How are you?" I didn't answer. I enrolled them in a zero equity startup built entirely around my internal mess, somehow expected them to be excited about the roadmap. No exit, no upside, just vibes. I thought complexity made me interesting. It doesn't. Complexity is just a higher tax on the other person's attention. People don't talk anymore, they present. They don't tell stories, they give updates. They don't share thoughts, they pitch relevance. They don't ask questions to understand, they ask questions so they can justify their own answer later. It's like inviting someone over to watch a movie, then pausing it every 5 minutes to explain why you picked it, what it says about you, and why you should appreciate it. Eventually, they don't care about the movie, they just want it to fucking end. And it's not just one pause, it's the interface. You don't just get the story, you get the disclaimers, you get the footnotes, you get the "before I say this, I should explain." There's a loading spinner every time that they think, a tooltip explaining their tone, a settings menu for how they're feeling today. And you're not listening anymore, you're navigating. You're clicking accept on emotional cookies. You're closing banners that say this might come out wrong. And you're waiting for the content to start while the interface keeps interrupting itself. Nothing is technically wrong, it's just exhausting. And after a while, you don't consciously decide to leave, you just stop opening the tab. Now, let's backtrack a little bit, bud. Think about the last time you met someone new. Not a date, not an interview, just a normal interaction. You probably did at least one of these things: explained what you're working around, qualified your opinion before stating it. You might have mentioned something impressive early to anchor their perception. But you weren't connecting, you were negotiating. People don't want you to know your potential, they don't want to know your ambition, they don't want to know your future plans. They want to know what it costs to be around you right now. And right now, you're not free. Every word checked, every reaction monitored, every silence patched. What I'm getting at is that means everyone else starts to become responsible for how you feel. And that's expensive. It's like handing someone a box and saying, "Don't worry, it's light," while quietly adding more bricks every time they look away. They don't notice the first one, they notice when their arms start shaking. This is where people have their little breakthrough moment. "Oh, that's me. Great. That relief feels productive." It isn't. Now your brain wants to fix your personality, better posture, more confidence, different clothes, less vulnerability, more vulnerability. Same behavior, bro, different font. Here's what people usually don't understand. It's that you didn't invent this behavior randomly, you learned it somewhere. Maybe it was a room where mistakes were punished and not corrected. Maybe it was a parent who audited everything you said. Or maybe it was even a job where one wrong tone meant you were difficult. So you learned to pad everything, you learned to sugarcoat everything. You learned to explain before being misunderstood, how to apologize before being blamed, how to soften your tone before being rejected. And it worked, it kept you so safe. But safety habits don't automatically expire. Every step is loud, every moment is heavy. You're not wrong, you're just overdressed for the situation. That thing you felt earlier or noticed earlier, that's not humility, that's insurance. And insurance premiums add up. The people that everyone wants to know share something incredibly boring. They don't make you work, they don't angle, they don't fish, they don't audition. They arrive already paid. Not impressive, but paid. They're settled enough to where no one has to stabilize them mid-conversation. Confidence isn't loud, it's not charismatic, it's not dominant. Confidence is when nothing is being asked of the room. No reassurance, no validation, no emotional spotting. Being around those people feels physical. Your shoulders drop without permission, your breathing slows, your thoughts stop racing to keep up. Not because they're quiet, because the surface is stable, like sitting in a chair that doesn't wobble. You don't think about it, you don't adjust, you don't brace, you just sit. That's the feeling people are chasing. It's not excitement and it's not charm. It's a relief that someone is actually easy to be around. On the other hand, high maintenance people are like a website from 2004. You just can't read the article. You have to decline the cookies, then close the join our newsletter pop-up, and then sit through a 30-second unskippable ad of them explaining their process. By the time the page finally loads, I've already closed the tab. I didn't leave because I hated the content. I left because the interface was a full-time job. You ever notice how some people make everything feel like a process? You can't just grab coffee, there's a preamble. You can't just talk, there's a check-in. You can't just disagree, there's a disclaimer. Before anything happens, you're walked through their internal weather report. And by the time they finish warming up, you're already tired. Not because they're emotional, because they've turned a casual interaction into a system with requirements. Responsibility is heavy, dude, and that's why certain people get invited everywhere and others slowly fall off the group chat. Not because one group is more fun, because one group doesn't require supervision. And if you wanted to become socially bankrupt as fast as possible, you'd do exactly what we praise. You'll go ahead and you'll talk about your big plans without actually doing anything. You'll bring unresolved frustration into every interaction. You'll wait for motivation instead of reliability. Monitor your vibe constantly and probably narrate self-awareness like it's a contribution. Explain why you're late in real time instead of just being late. Turn a 2-minute apology into a 10-minute emotional processing session. Narrate why you're about to be honest before saying the thing. Apologize so thoroughly that the other person has to confront you. You won't be hated. You'd be quietly downgraded from I should see them to I'll respond later to I forgot. The real shift in tolerance for ambiguity is letting silence exist, letting reactions happen, and letting conversations end without squeezing meaning out of them. Someone asks you what to do, old version. Well, right now I'm kind of figuring things out. But the new version, I'm doing this. Don't rescue it. If you jump back in and explain what you're doing, you didn't save it, you ruined it. When you stop negotiating, some people disappear, not because you became worse, because you stopped subsidizing the interaction. Some people weren't friends, they were customers. They were there for the discount, and the moment you stopped paying, they didn't give a fuck. That's not rejection, that's cost alignment. You don't become the person everyone wants to know, you become the person some people stay with, because you're not asking them to carry the moment. That's not charisma, that's weight.